John Winchester's letter might explain the Winchesters' changing supernatural canon. Here's how. The very concept of the Winchesters challenges continuity supernatural fans thought they already knew, and this is acknowledged by Jensen Ackles' narration as a returning Dean Winchester in the pilot episode. John Winchester shouldn't know his future wife, Mary Campbell, is a hunter, nor should he know about monsters or the clandestine Men of Letters organization his father belonged to. In the Winchesters episode 1, he finds out about all three. Although the canon discrepancy is acknowledged, Dean admits surprises are in store. It hasn't yet been explained, but a potential clue can be found within the mysterious letter Drake Rogers John carries with him throughout episode 1. The letter is from his father, Henry, who Supernatural revealed was killed alongside his fellow paranormal Freemasons by Abaddon. Supernatural didn't, however, mention anything about Henry sending his son a posthumous letter. Could this explain why the Winchesters' version of events is so different? John's letter changes supernatural history as a hypothetical exercise. Let's imagine John Winchester doesn't receive a letter from his missing father in the Winchesters episode 1. How do the pilot's events change? John and Mary still bump into each other outside the movie theater in Lawrence, Kansas, and the returning soldier still gets his licorice drops. Without the letter, however, John doesn't go searching for the Men of Letters clubhouse later that night. He doesn't, badly, fight a demon, doesn't discover Mary Campbell is a hunter, and doesn't learn anything about his father's double life. John presumably continues working at the Winchester family garage, then innocently encounters Mary for a second time further down the line, perhaps with Cupid involvement, as stated in Supernatural. Without the letter, it's entirely plausible that John and Mary begin dating without the Campbell family's business ever coming to light. Mary, meanwhile, would still be hunting for her missing father in Lawrence, but couldn't enter the Men of Letters clubhouse without the key John was carrying. John's letter in the Winchesters episode 1 appears to be the decisive difference between spin-off canon and established supernatural canon. The message leads John toward discovering monsters, learning Mary Campbell is a hunter, and finding out about his father's Men of Letters connection. Is a time traveler responsible for the Winchesters' canon changes? Since Henry's letter to John looks to be the big canon sticking point in John and Mary's story, are the Winchesters' deviations from Supernatural the fault of a time traveler? After trying to help Mary fight a demon in the Winchesters, young John explains how he returned from Vietnam and a man he'd never met gave him Henry's letter. This mystery messenger could be a time traveler, either a visitor from the future, or an entity who can transcend the barriers of time like an angel or God. This theory is further supported by John's claim that the paranormal postman simply vanished into thin air. In Supernatural's original history, young John simply returned from Vietnam, got on his bus, and went back to Kansas, but an unknown agent has now interfered with time by intercepting John upon his return to U.S. soil and giving him a letter from Henry that explains everything. As justifications for the Winchesters' canon changes go, an altered history would arguably be the smoothest. Supernatural fans had pondered whether John's memory might get wiped during the spin-off's ending, but not only would such a straightforward solution feel cheap, it's a get-out clause Supernatural used already. Others have suggested the Winchesters takes place in an alternate universe, and while that explanation accounts for continuity wrinkles well enough, it means viewers aren't really watching Sam and Dean's parents, which lowers the stakes. Somebody meddling with history and changing John Winchester's timeline offers the best of both worlds, a workable excuse for canon changes that goes beyond a simple hand wave, while also keeping the stakes high by focusing on the genuine John and Mary. Theory: Dean gave Henry's letter to John Winchester. A more convincing theory is that Dean Winchester himself gives John the letter, the son passing his father a message from his grandfather. Sam and Dean meet Henry Winchester in Supernatural Season 8 as time goes by after the Man of Letters, in more ways than one, apparently, uses a blood spell to travel from the 1950s to where his future descendants are. He accidentally skips John's place in the timeline and lands straight in front of his grandchildren. After hearing how John grew up feeling abandoned, Henry tries to travel back and change history so that his son gets a normal childhood with his dad, but ultimately realizes doing so will have a grave impact upon history. Perhaps tellingly, as time goes by ends with Dean pondering, "Kind of makes you wish he knew the truth, huh?" in regard to John knowing his dad loved him and didn't run away by choice. That wish sort of comes true in Supernatural Season 14's Lebanon, where John Winchester reunites with his family for a day. Sam and Dean tell their dad the truth about Henry, but because the time-space continuum is breaking apart, John is forced to forget everything he learned while visiting the future. Maybe the Winchesters proves Dean eventually found a way John could know the truth about his father's disappearance, but without negatively affecting history. Perhaps a carefully placed letter in 1972 relieves a young John of his paternal baggage, but doesn't change his ultimate destiny of meeting Mary, having 2 sons, and dying in pursuit of the yellow-eyed demon. Who else could the Winchesters' time traveler be? As ever, Chuck is a potential culprit for the Winchesters' hidden Hermes. Supernatural's resident god is powerful enough to traverse the timeline, and obsessed enough with the Winchesters to fiddle with how their parents met. Even assuming Chuck is actually mortal by the end of Supernatural, this might be been a plan he executed before the final battle against Sam, Dean and Jack. Although God always works in mysterious ways, changing John Winchester's early life may somehow cause a ripple effect that prevents Chuck's own downfall in Supernatural Season 15. In support of Chuck being responsible for the Winchesters' canon changes, the movie playing when John and Mary meet is Slaughterhouse-Five. Chuck actually referenced this Kurt Vonnegut novel back in Supernatural Season 4, so the movie theater sign could represent a subtle indication of his influence. Another possibility is that changing history is the only way the Winchesters' Akrita villains can be defeated. These interdimensional bad guys apparently threaten the whole of reality and have been attempting to invade Supernatural's prime universe for centuries. The Akrita won't necessarily be bound by standard laws of time, so maybe the only way they can be defeated is if John Winchester becomes a hunter and teams up with Mary Campbell in 1972. The Winchesters continues Tuesday on the CW.